Map of social entrepreneurship and their ecosystem in Europe. This model is based on four main topics: business models, economic weight, tax regimes, and identification of best practices. At the end of this model, you will know what are the social enterprises business models, revenue streams and markets, entrepreneurial dimension, legal forms and models of social enterprise creation. Does social enterprise play an important role in Europe? What economic weight of social enterprises could be recognized in social economy? What tax regimes are for social enterprises and what exists in Europe? And some best practices and examples of social enterprises in Europe. We have a variety of business models, and in the following module, we provide material to learn about the variety in the objects, revenue streams, and markets of the social enterprise, different entrepreneurial dimensions in the social business, legal forms of social business, and models of social enterprise creation. So businesses have traditionally been categorized by ownership and predominantly profit objectives. A typical classification divides economic activity neatly into two sectors and assumes two objectives of business: social and commercial, or profit. These are either as one of the ownerships, public or private. Companies can be seen as profit-maximizing businesses whose purpose is to create shareholder value, or on the other hand, non-profit organizations which exist to fill social objectives. From this figure, it shows us how social business borrows from both these entities. It has to cover its full costs from its operations, and its owners are entitled to recover their invested money. But it is more cause than profit driven. Its position in the lower right quadrant shows that it has both the potential to act as a change agent for the world with sufficient business-like characteristics to ensure it survives to do so. There is a hybrid nature of social enterprises. In analogy to mixed economies consisting of private and government activities, a limited number of mixed forms of social enterprises are conceivable. Several classifications of the social economy or of non-profit businesses have been developed. Economically, the two groups have been converging for some time, and business law is not effective in drawing distinctions by intended purpose. The dynamics of modern business defy such categorization and blur the boundaries between types. The hybrid nature of social enterprises could be generally understood as a simple mixture of characteristics on a continuum between two opposite poles. Hybridity in business can bridge several divides according to the chosen criteria of classification, notably the following: by ultimate ends for profit versus non-profit, by societal sector, market versus civil society versus state, by type of integration, external versus integrated versus embedded, by goods produced, private versus public, by product status, goods versus services, by agents of value creation, producers versus consumers, and by ownership, private versus cooperative versus public. Social entrepreneurship therefore has a dual goal as the microeconomic level to pursue social projects that address specific social needs, and at the macroeconomic level to advance the civil economy within the economy as a whole. In organizational structure, this new form of business is basically the same as profit-maximizing businesses. It is not a charity, but a business in every sense. The managerial mindset must be the same as in a business. When you're running a social business, you think and work differently than if you were running a charity, even though your objective is different from a profit-maximizing company. At the same time as trying to achieve their social objective, social businesses need to recover their full costs so they can be self-sustainable. Their owners never intend to make profits for themselves. There are no dividends, but they are entitled to get their money back if they wish. Rather than being passed on to investors, surpluses generated by the social businesses are reinvested in the business and thus ultimately passed on to the target group of beneficiaries in such forms as lower prices, better service, or greater accessibility. Thus, a social business is designed and operated just like a regular business enterprise, with products, services, customers, markets, expenses, and revenues. It is a no-loss, no-dividend, self-sustaining company that sells goods or services and repays investments to its owners, but whose primary purpose is to serve society and improve the lot of the poor. Here it differs from NGOs, most of which are not designed to recover their total costs from their operations and are therefore obliged to devote part of their time and energy to the beginning of a development project. Hence, a social business is a new form of business that can be located somewhere between a profit-maximizing and a non-profit organization. 3 stages, therefore, can be distinguished in the process of integration between profit-orientated and non-profit businesses. They largely correspond to the philanthropic, transactional, and integrative collaboration. At the external stage, the relationship is one-sided, as one between a charitable donor and a recipient. There are no elements of integrated strategies or management functions. At the integrated stage, the flow of benefits becomes bilateral as resources are exchanged and learning becomes mutual. At the embedded stage, the principles characteristic of the 2 types of enterprise have merged at the levels of strategy and execution, such that the social programs are managed with the efficiency typical of private businesses. Business and for-profit projects are designed with responsibility and care for others. These stages can be shown in this figure that we have here. Mission orientation and type of integration are highly correlated, and a business unrelated to mission should not count as a social enterprise. Social entrepreneurship creates new business models. Business models in general could be described how businesses act and use organizational structures and resources strategically to generate both customer and economic value. The value creation, which describes the bundle of products and services that create value for a specific customer segment, may occur in a value network, which includes suppliers, partners, distribution channels, and coalitions that extend the company's resources. A practical guide has been described for the generic building blocks of the business model canvas as follows. You have the customer segment. This defines the target group the enterprise aims to serve. The value propositions. This seeks to solve customer problems and satisfy customer needs with products or services that create value for a specific customer segment. Customer relationships. These are established and maintained with each customer segment. Distribution channels. Value propositions are delivered to customers through communication, distribution, and sales revenue. Sales channels. The key resources. These are the assets required to offer and deliver the previously described elements. Key activities. These are the most important things a company must carry out to make its business model work. Key partnerships. The network of suppliers and partners providing resources and activities to make the business model work. Revenue streams. These result from value propositions successfully offered to customers. And cost structure. These describe the important costs incurred while operating under a particular business model. This business model canvas could be condensed as we have shown in these 3 core elements: value proposition, value constellation, and profit equation. A value proposition, that is the answer to the question, who are our customers and what do we offer to them that they value? A value constellation, that is the answer to the question, how do we deliver this offer to our customers? This involves not only the company's own value chain, but also its value network with its suppliers and partners. These 2 components need to fit together like pieces of a puzzle in order to generate a positive profit equation, which is the financial translation of the other 2 and includes how value is captured from the revenues generated through the value proposition and how costs are structured and capital employed in the value constellation. From a design perspective, a generic business model must, as a minimum, specify the what, for whom, and how of production. It must, as its essential core, core identify content structure and governance. This then suggests a typology of social enterprise that suggests potential business models. Social enterprises can be classified by their mission orientation, by the level of integration between non-profit social programs and for-profit businesses, and by the intended target markets. The business model provides a useful framework for looking at social entrepreneurship and how it can manage the network of multiple stakeholders with diverse needs, diverse resources and abilities, and diverse interaction modes. Due to their specific characteristics, social entrepreneurs are often able to leverage the business model logic for new forms of value creation. So the business models of a social enterprise. The basis of social business models are built on logical structure of social relations among social enterprises, target population, and goods or services transacted on markets on which they are otherwise traded. The specific model results from the combinations between those three arguments. The options have been further consolidated into 9 fundamental types of business models for social enterprises, which are feasible and are indeed widely implemented. The entrepreneur support model, market intermediary model, employment model, fee-for-service model, low-income clientele market, cooperative model, market linkage model, service subsidization model, and organizational support model. There are, for example, cooperative movements for farmers, craftsmen, shopkeepers, and consumers that in some countries have become formidable players on factor and consumer markets, so it becomes a cooperative model. They allow smaller suppliers to bundle their otherwise atomistic market power to compete with multinational corporations, and thus at least partially to overcome diseconomies of scale. Several institutional forms have been created, ranging from limited partnerships to marketing cooperatives and consortia based on rules of both efficiency and equity. For example, of an organizational support model, ethical investment funds and fair trade organizations complement this trend. Social enterprises that facilitate the performance of target populations on markets, for example, by providing training or loan guarantees, make up the market linkage model. In the United States, the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, which is the government-sponsored and publicly traded company with the purpose of expanding the secondary mortgage market by securitizing mortgages in the form of mortgage-backed securities, is an example. Also, service the subsidization model. We can look at the worldwide economy of communion as a project of the Focolare movement is a network of businesses that freely choose to share their profits according to 3 principles of equal importance: to grow their businesses, help people in need, and spread the culture of giving. The business model provides a systematic account of the design options for value creation. From a social entrepreneur's viewpoint, these design options define entrepreneurial opportunities for generating the means to create social value for their beneficiaries. Let's look at the legal forms of social enterprise. A number of European EU countries have institutionalized the concept of social enterprise either by creating tailor-made legal forms for social enterprise and/or a transversal legal status. Additionally, specific social enterprise marks or certificates schemes can be found in 4 countries, Finland, Germany, Poland, and the UK, to provide visibility and a distinct identity to social enterprises. Social enterprises adopt a variety of legal forms and statuses. Existing legal forms such as associations, foundations, cooperatives, share companies. New legal forms exclusively designed for social enterprises by adapting or tailoring existing legal forms. For example, social cooperatives in Italy, Société coopérative d'intérêt collectif in France, community interest companies in the UK, legal status that can be obtained by selected or all existing legal forms, which comply with a number of legally defined criteria. For example, social enterprise legal status in Italy or the social purpose company in Belgium. And finally, D, new types of legal forms that allow traditional non-profit organizations to undertake economic activity, such as the Non-Profit Institute in Slovenia. The adaptation of existing legal forms to take into account the specific features of social enterprises. There are 5 countries have created new legal forms for social enterprise by adapting or tailoring existing legal forms. 2 main approaches can be observed across Europe. In 4 countries, France, Greece, Italy, and Poland, a separate new legal form for social enterprise has been created by adapting the cooperative legal form. Additionally, 5 countries recognise social cooperatives, or the social purpose of cooperatives, in their existing legislation covering cooperatives. These are Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Portugal, and Spain. The UK has developed a legal form for use by social enterprises, the community interest company, that specifically adapts the company form. 7 countries have introduced transversal legal statuses that cut across the boundaries of various legal forms and can be adopted by different types of organisations provided they meet predefined criteria. These countries are Belgium, Denmark, Italy, Finland, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Lithuania. Other countries planning to create social enterprise legal statuses include Latvia, Luxembourg, Malta, and Poland. In addition, the Czech government is considering introducing a legal status for social enterprise in 2015. A legal status can be obtained by select or all existing legal forms, provided they comply with predefined criteria. An example of the former is the social purpose company status in Belgium, which can be adopted by any type of enterprise. Recognition of specific types of non-profit organisations that allow for the conduct of economic activity, for example, non-profit institute in Slovenia, public benefit corporation in the Czech Republic. Although not labelled as such, these organisations are de facto social enterprises. So, models of creation of social enterprise activity. Looking across Europe, a potential typology of modes of creation can be put forward, with the balance of modes in any one country strongly determined by the pre-existing political economy and shaped by the national framework conditions and ecosystem for social enterprise. Individual modes can be grouped based on their drivers: citizen-led, marketization of traditional non-profit organizations such as charities, associations, foundations, voluntary and community organizations, and public sector restructuring. So citizen-led, citizen-driven mission organization, where groups of citizens have set up organizations, often with few resources at their disposal, to address new needs and societal challenges or integrate disadvantaged people through work. This is by and large the predominant mode of creation of social enterprises. The social startup, a social entrepreneur, sees the opportunity to trade a new good or service to meet a social aim or need. Generally, these social enterprises are viewed as more individual-based and commercial in outlook from the start, but nevertheless with a social mission and associated with a narrower Anglo-Saxon understanding of social entrepreneurship. Traditional non-profit organizations such as charities, associations, foundations, voluntary and community organizations embark on marketization and commercialization. An existing organization transforms itself into a social enterprise. An existing voluntary organization, charity, association, or foundation begins to generate traded income and reaches the traded income threshold as a proportion of all income, whereby the organization is understood by stakeholders to be or becomes a social enterprise. An existing organization sets up a trading arm, which is the social enterprise. In many instances, legal, regulatory, or risk appetite precludes an existing voluntary organization, charity, association, or foundation from undertaking economic activity, or only doing so to a certain limit. To overcome this restriction, a trading arm is created which reinvests a certain level of profits into its parent organization. This mode of creation is relatively popular in new member countries of Central Europe. The public sector restructuring. The public sector spin out opportunity entrepreneurship. Management staff recognize the greater potential for innovation and new investment sources through autonomy and independence, leading to a spin-out of the service. This process may actively be supported by the parent institution or policymakers more broadly through specialist advisor programs, investment and finance support, initial service procurement agreements. The public sector spin-out drivers such as shifting views on the role of the state in provision, new forms of procurement and provider, social innovation and/or funding cuts lead to an enforced decommissioning of an internal public service and an enforced but possibly supported spin-out. In terms of existing scale, associations and foundations far outweigh social enterprise numbers, but estimation of the extent to which traditional voluntary organisations, charities, associations, and foundations in Europe are undertaking marketisation to the point of their attainment of social enterprise status is virtually impossible without substantial and highly detailed research. The potential comprehensive identification of public sector spin-outs is easier given that such modes of creation are far fewer in number and relevant in only a very few countries. For example, evident in the UK and Slovakia. So in this section, you could learn what roles social enterprise play, what economical weight it has in a social economy. So the social economy, the label that is used in the tradition of many European countries and recently also by the European Union to refer to social enterprises is the social economy, a term that stresses the special attention that these organisations pay to the social consequences of their activities more than to the profit maximisation and their participative and democratic governance structures. Based on the available evidence, it is estimated that the social economy in Europe, measured as the aggregate of cooperatives, mutuals, associations and foundations, engages over 14.5 million paid employees, equivalent to about 6.5% of the working population of the EU 27, and about 7.4% in EU 15 countries. Interestingly, the social economy has increased more than proportionately between 2002, 2003, and 2009 and 2010, increasing from 6% to 6.5% of total European paid employment and from 11 million to 14.5 million jobs. Incidentally, this is a phenomenon that is not confined to Europe, but is gathering strength around the world, as exemplified by the data on cooperatives published in the World Cooperative Monitor by Eurosys and the International Cooperative Alliance. Beyond the numbers, history provides evidence of the great potential of the social economy in supporting economic development and improving well-being, as these organisations have always made an important contribution to economic dynamism and growth from different perspectives. And in recent decades, the social economy has strengthened its position as a key driver of stable and sustainable economic growth, especially as a provider of services of social interest. Social economy organisations tend to give precedence to people and labour over capital in the distribution of incomes. This means, for instance, that these organisations will tend to preserve employment and quality of service to their members and customers, even at the cost of reducing their margin of profit. Social economy organisations are also generally characterised by democratic decision-making processes, whereby key decisions concerning the organisation are voted upon by all of its members. What social economy organisations share and what sets them apart from conventional enterprises is the overall aim of their activities, which does not emphasise the pursuit of profit and its distribution to the owners as an ultimate goal. In fact, the main goals pursued by social economy organisations include both the provision of goods and services, including employment opportunities, to their members, and the pursuit of community interest goals, for example, activities that benefit society at large, like the provision of general interest services. Another characteristic shared by most social economy organisations is their ownership structure, as ownership rights are assigned to stakeholders other than investors, and significant emphasis is placed on stakeholder involvement and participation. These stakeholders can include workers, customers, or even volunteers, as many social economy organisations are characterised by significant participation of volunteers, who often play a key role, particularly in the startup phase of the organisation. Given these characteristics, social economy organisations tend to give precedence to people and labour over capital in the distribution of incomes. This means, for instance, that these organisations will tend to preserve employment and quality of service to their members and customers, even at the cost of reducing their margin of profit. Social enterprises have emerged in recent years as a new and very significant phenomenon, not only throughout Europe, but also in other continents. In particular, in the European tradition, a social enterprise is seen as an operator in the social economy whose main objective is to have a social impact rather than make a profit for their owners or shareholders. It operates by providing goods and services for the market in an entrepreneurial and innovative fashion and uses its profits primarily to achieve social objectives. It is managed in an open and responsible manner and in particular involve employees, consumers and stakeholders affected by its commercial activities. There is a lack of standard and consistency used classifications of social enterprise activity within and across countries in Europe. A broad typology of activities can be drawn on the basis of existing, if discrete, sectorial classifications as marked here: social and economic integration of the disadvantaged and excluded, social services of general interest, such as long-term care for elderly and for people with disabilities, education and childcare, employment and training services, social housing, healthcare and medical services, other public services such as community transport, maintenance of public spaces, strengthening democracy, civil rights and digital participation, environmental activities such as reducing emissions and waste, renewable energy, and practicing solidarity with developing countries. So let's have a look at the revenue streams. Revenues derived from public contracts. Social enterprise contract with public authorities and agencies to receive fees for defined services. The structure of these payments can be quite different, varying from direct payment by public authorities to social security systems, voucher systems, or indirect payment through third-party intermediaries. Direct grants or subsidies provided to social enterprises by public authorities, e.g. grants for specific project-based activity. Employment subsidies are often made available to WISE as compensation for employing people with impaired workability and for the resulting productivity shortfall. Market-based revenue derived from private sources through the sales of goods and services to other business and final consumers. Membership fees, donations and sponsorship. And other forms of revenue include income from renting assets such as property, penalty payments, prize money, or income from endowed assets, and non-monetary forms such as in-kind donations. Volunteering time especially has remained an important source of an in-kind revenue. So you see there public funds, public contracting from both competitive tenders and direct contracting, grants, subsidies, then private funds, trading activity, rental incomes, fees including membership fees, sponsorship, donations, and other like voluntary. It is mentioned in a study of 2014 that public sector funding dominates the revenue streams of social enterprises, reflecting in large part their missions and activity focus, such as work integration and provision of social and welfare services in the EU countries. For example, an estimated 45% of social enterprises in Italy have public bodies as their main clients. In the UK, 52% of social enterprises derive some income from the public sector, and 23% describe it as their main or only source of income. A notable dynamic by which social enterprises are generating earned income is the increasing contracting out of services in healthcare, social care, education, criminal justice, leisure, and a host of other areas by public authorities across Europe as a means of securing best value for money and offering greater choice and personalisation to the users of these services. So let's see if there are any tax breaks for social enterprises. In this chapter, you will learn what support there is for social enterprises and tax breaks which exist in the EU. There are very few countries with tax breaks specifically designed for social enterprises. The general pattern in European countries is that tax breaks may exist for certain forms of tax exempt non-profit organizations. Tax breaks may exist for integration enterprises, WISE. Tax breaks may exist for the conduct of certain forms of activities. Otherwise, social enterprises are generally taxed according to their underlying legal form. In some countries, the tax system varies on a regional or local basis. NPOs with a recognised public benefit status are usually eligible for a range of tax reliefs, including corporation income and capital tax reliefs, tax relief on certain forms of expenses, tax deductions on donations for donors, inheritance tax relief for donors, relief on property transactions, relief on local or municipal taxes, reliefs on investment income, and often a range of other tax reliefs. So to be eligible for tax advantage status, an MPO will often need to prove that it exists for the public benefit, has a social purpose and limitations on distribution, does not benefit its members or managers, is accessible to persons on low incomes, and meet other qualifying conditions, including sometimes beneficial tax regimes exist for MPOs with public benefit status in the vast majority of member states, with only a handful of exceptions. Integration enterprises, or WISE, typically benefit from a range of tax reliefs, including partial reimbursement of wages, deductions or relief from social insurance contributions, and in some cases, partial or complete exemption from corporation tax. Integration enterprises, WISE, also often receive other forms of subsidies, such as subsidies for the adaptation of workplaces and subsidies for other relevant costs, such as the cost of specialized training, transport costs, or the cost of specialized or adapted equipment. Tax reliefs are usually predicted on conformity with the underlying integration enterprise, legal status or legal form requirements, which relate to factors such as the nature, condition, and number of persons employed by the integration enterprise. Many European countries have a range of tax exemptions for certain forms of activities, such as training and educational activities, development and innovation related activities, making donations of goods or services to certain disadvantaged groups, purchase of certain forms of assets, employment of persons in certain localities with high unemployment, investment into small and medium-sized companies, and investment into deprived communities or other designated localities. No country cited any tax exemptions for the use of volunteers, except for the example of small tax-exempt payments to volunteers for expenses, as in the Netherlands. Some countries of study mentioned that companies cannot legally be recognized as having volunteers. In a number of countries, legally recognized social enterprises are eligible for a range of tax exemptions, forms of corporation tax relief on property transactions, relief from local or municipal taxes. In France and the UK, exemptions exist for investors into certain social enterprises. In France, individual investors are able to deduct up to 25% of the value of an investment into an SCIC from income tax. In the UK, individuals are able to deduct up to 30% of the value of an investment into a charity, community, benefit society, or cooperative from income tax. Additionally, in Italy, taxpayers are able to devolve 5 times 1,000 of the income tax in favour of social enterprises identified each year by the government department responsible for finance. So there are examples of successful best practices which we have provided. We are going to have a look at the Clink Charities activities for prisoners rehabilitation, in Galera, new business model from jail to the city, the social restaurant in Italy. La Sapienza in Tavola, it's called, and then the salad bar Mano Guru, also new theatre. So here's the Clink Charities activities for prisoners rehabilitation. The Clink Charities' sole aim is to reduce reoffending through the training and rehabilitation of prisoners. They work in partnership with HMPS to run various projects within prison, Clink restaurants, Clink events, and Clink gardens. All projects utilise a 5-step programme to ensure their prisoners receive the support they need, not only while they are in prison, but also after release, recruit, training, support, employee mentoring. The Clink charity declares 87.5% success rate in reducing reoffenders. The Clink Restaurants is a Clink charity work in partnership with Her Majesty's Prison Service to run projects that train and give practical skills to prisoners to aid their rehabilitation. The Clink Restaurants allow prisoners to learn, engage with the public, and take their first step towards a new life. A unique dining experience, food is cooked and served by the prisoners in training who are working towards sitting guilds, MVQs in hospitality and catering, and customer service. Most of the restaurants are located within prison walls. This kind of service gives change in perception. Many people who visit the Clink restaurants comment that they feel touched by their experience and that their interaction with the prisoners alters any preconceptions they may have had about them or about rehabilitation. Clink Restaurants is located in London, Wales, Cheshire and Surrey. The Clink Gardens in Surrey was the first venture into a women's prison for the Clink charity. The project gives female prisoners the opportunity to gain practical experience and nationally recognised sitting guilds, MVQs in horticulture and the support required to secure employment upon release. Training is delivered by certified trainers using the same 5-step program which has proved successful in other Clink training projects. The Clink Gardens at HMP Highdown has a greenhouse with heating system which was bought using money donated by the Bromley Trust, 6 polytunnels for growing produce. The Clink Gardens at HMP Prescode has 90 woodland chickens, and the prisoners there also harvest vegetables and herbs that we use in the Clink restaurant at HMP Cardiff. The prisoners working at the Clink Gardens grow, cultivate and harvest crops and rear free-range organically fed chickens for eggs. Seasonal fruits, specialty and heritage vegetables and salad items are then transported to the Clink restaurants at HMP Highdown, HMP Cardiff and HMP Brixton, where they are used to create fresh seasonal dishes for the Clink restaurant menus or by kitchen trainings. The Clink events caters for private events within the southeast of the UK, offering hot and cold canopies, bowl food and buffets. Clink events can cater for events up to 1,000 people. However, small events with as few as 20 guests can be accommodated with a minimum delivery charge applied. Prisoners in training at the Clink restaurant at HMP Highdown prepare hot and cold canopies, bowl food and buffets from scratch, using the skills and experience they learn on the training scheme. Support the training and development of prisoners and Centrepoint clients working towards sitting guilds, NVQs and hospitality, and help aid rehabilitation, a fresh approach to event catering. In Galeria is a new business model from jail to the city, the social restaurant. In 2004, ABC, a cooperative of prisoners with a background in food and beverage and of professional caterers with a well-established system of restaurateurs, started a new project in the jail of Milano Bollate. The co-op provided high-end services to local businesses, public administration, universities, associations and private citizens. To this day, ABC has organised over 450 events, including receptions and gala dinners for an upscale clientele. Additionally, it produces its own pastries and pizza to go. Since 2014, it also manages the Prison Guards Outlet Bar, which employs both detainees and external personnel. The project From Jail to the City, the social restaurant, a business model, has its origins in 2012, when ABC participated to the fundraiser Adopt a Hotel School Student. The fundraiser promoted the opening of a section of the Paolo Frisi Hotel School within the prison of Bollate. The school, in fact, had a long history of experimenting with initiatives aimed at creating advantageous synergies between the jail system and the school's programs. ABC's idea was to equip its prisoners with skills through a formative process which would lead to the attainment of a diploma in order to consolidate and extend the possibility of social rehabilitation when prisoners were released from jail. This year, the prison's hotel school will have its first graduating class. ABC's other plan was to open a social restaurant inside the jail with the involvement of prisoners in order to help them have a strong curriculum to help eliminate the stigma imposed by society. So have a look at the Narcissus Theatres, which was established also in 2008, and it was 2 years people with disabilities were trained in the Academy of Lithuania Theatre to develop excellence in acting, directing, stage movement and speech, makeup, theatre, history and vocal skills. Currently in the theatre they're working 29 people, of which 27 have various disabilities. Within several years, they presented 9 performances for more than 10,000 viewers in various Lithuanian cities, towns and villages. We also have a look at Guru, Mano Guru. They provide a professional experience for people after medical rehabilitation. They take part in theoretical and practical training and acquire skills of a professional chef, waiter, or bartender. Here they get their first work experience and first job placements. They leave not only with the experience and qualification, but also with the recommendation of the employer. Throughout the entire training period, they are accompanied by a social worker and a psychologist and receive help of group therapy. There are various other many examples of social enterprises, um, but we thank you very much for your attention and happy learning.